I love this concept of a bigger, better future. I think about wealth, health, and relationships. So when I think about wealth, I think, how do I have enough money to live the desired life that I want, to provide for my family, to give me the freedom, something that I can allocate, I can buy my time back? Health. Without your health, everybody thinks you have lots of problems. Without your health, you have one problem. But I mean, that doesn't seem like the kind of life I want to have, where I'm going to actually play with my kids and eventually play with my grandkids. And I think relationships, and for me, when I think about relationships, it goes back to that community and that tribe. I love hanging out with like-minded people, but it's around the same characteristics of what's important to us, right? Those are the relationships that I want to foster. And those are the relationships I want to invest in. And when I think about those three categories, I think about, how can I be an A in every category? If we grade it from an A to an F, how can I be an A in every category? Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to I'm the One podcast. I'm your host, Robb Green.
Everybody's got a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, there's a million of them out there, and I love them. I eat them up. They're my favorite thing to listen to. That and audiobooks is pretty much what I consume. But you know, when everybody has one, that was my question to you when you asked me about this. Like, you just want to be another one of the cool kids, or like, you know, what's the whole purpose of this? What is this going to do for you? What's your purpose for doing this podcast, I guess?
It's a great question. I think the idea is to build a community, right? So actually, the funny thing about starting this podcast is I came into the office on a Friday at like 4:00 one day, and a few people on my team said, "Hey, we decided you're starting a podcast." So that was a decision that was made.
So you didn't make it.
I didn't actually make the decision. They did a couple months ago. So
I see how your company works now.
Yeah. Okay. I just work here. Okay. So I tell the same thing I tell my wife. I just work for the house for her. I just work for her.
Yeah. Which is probably true.
It is true. Yes. It really is. Yes, 100%. So we came up with the name I'm the One. And really, I think that the thing about it, I think everybody in their life believes that they're capable of more. And the goal of the podcast, and whether it's YouTube or whether you consume the information, is that I want you to be the one in your life, right? It's not about me being the one. It's about you being the one and choosing to be the one. And I think so many people want more than the life that they're living. And they know that deep down it's possible, and they just don't know how to get there. And one thing I think that I might separate me from a lot of the other podcasts, because I'm a voracious consumer of information and podcasts, is that a lot of times it's not action steps. And I'll listen to 2-hour podcasts where it'd be a great interview and it's extremely entertaining, but I want to hopefully bring that plus action steps.
Okay.
What did I do? What worked? What didn't work?
Right.
And then what can you do and what you want to try? And I really believe, I think the word community gets thrown out a lot.
Right.
And I don't know what that looks like yet. I mean, we're just going to go into this and just happen. Tribe, community, same idea. I truly believe that if I win, everybody around me wins.
100%.
And I believe that 3 people together are smarter than 1 person. 20 people together, 100 people together are smarter than 1 person by themselves. Right? So it's a crowdsourcing. It's everybody helping each other. But I think the real key for me is, how do you identify those people? And I think this podcast will be a filter for that.
How would you do that though? Like, or is this just let's do this and see how it comes about?
Yeah, I have
learn as you go.
I have no idea what's going to happen with this. We're putting this out there, and we're going to see who it resonates with. And I think there will be a majority of people that they don't like me. They don't like my messaging. They don't like the way I look. They don't like my hair. I don't really care. To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter to me.
Social media, they're critical.
Yeah, they might be a little critical.
Oh, wow.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. Most people, I don't worry about what other people think. But I do think that this will resonate with people that are similarly like-minded, like yourself. Like, I have a few people on my team that we resonate together, right? And real quick on this, I'm part of a mastermind I helped to co-found a few years ago. We've been doing this e-commerce mastermind for 6 years. 10, 11 of us get together every 4 months, 3 times a year, and we just share best practices. These are all like-minded people. These people all are trying to learn. They're ambitious. They own their own business. We're all growing together. And we've seen this over the last 6 years. We were in the trenches. Then we kind of became managers. Then we become business owners. And now we've got other businesses and other adventures we're looking for to outside of e-commerce, right?
So you guys have grown up together.
100%. And that's the best thing I ever did, is start with that with a friend of mine, Pablo. And because it allows me to build that tribe and community. And what happens is, if you build something like that, you become a magnet. And when you're a magnet, you get other people that want to come. And so we've changed the group over time. Some people, it wasn't the right fit. It wasn't the right time in their life, or maybe it didn't resonate with them. And then we've added a few people over the past few years. We have some people come as guests and they're the perfect fit. And you're like, this guy is the perfect fit for our group. He is wired like we are. He fits culturally. Yep. He's constantly trying to get better. We try him out. We always try him out. We have 3 to 4 guests. Yeah, there you go. 3 to 4 guests usually at every event. And maybe we add one person a year. Yeah. And then some people are just better fit. Like, hey, you should just come back as a guest and come back as a guest again. The unique part about the mastermind is that we don't charge any money. So have you ever been to a mastermind?
I've never been.
So I had been involved in one. I had applied and it was expensive. I mean, I think it was like 25 grand for a year. And it was 4 meetings. I mean, they can get really expensive, these masterminds.
And the point of a mastermind is to
hang out with like-minded people. The concept comes from a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Yep. And the idea is to hang out with like-minded people. You're all in the same boat, kind of pulling together and sharing what's working, what's not working. And you end up kind of caring about the other person's business. So I'll see something that might be a great product for one of my friends' businesses. And I'm like, hey, did you see this brand? Or, hey, did you see this product? You should look into it because it fits your category that you're in. So you all start helping each other. This goes back to the whole belief, like when I win, everybody else wins. Yeah. And not everybody's cut out for that because some people tend not to want to share. They want to hold it close to their vest, right? It's an abundance versus scarcity mindset.
But that's a huge problem, right? When people do that, and obviously a lot of entrepreneurs do that, and it's who they become. Yeah, they don't want to share, but
they're scared.
And the great thing about having what you just talked about is you now have 7, 8, how many people you have, all these different perspectives, and you're in your little bubble. You live in this place, and this is what you see. They get to see all of these different things outside that you have blind spots to. Yep. And so that's a great thing. And so I get the value in again, paying for it, not paying for it, whatever.
But the not paying for it sounds like a trivial thing. And honestly,
so why? No, that's my question though. Is like, why would you? I mean, pay for it. Who are you paying? Like, is there one guy that?
Yeah, one guy. Usually, one person runs the mastermind. He facilitates it, gets the venue, gets the food, does all that stuff, and then it's a profit center for him.
Yes,
so one thing that we decided was to not do that. So we call it no BS.
I like it.
And the difference is, if you don't bring value, then we ask you maybe not to be a part of the mastermind anymore.
Then bye.
And that's never fun. No. I typically get a lot of the blame when people get asked to not be a part of it anymore, even though it's a group vote. But it is I came up with a ranking system, so it's a forced ranking system. And so, it's okay. It's just not a right fit for some people.
Why do you get blamed for it?
I tend to be the loudest or the facilitator in the group. So I think that I get a lot of the blame, even though it didn't come necessarily from me. But the idea of not paying for it, what happens is, well, let me take a step back. When you do pay for something, you expect something in return. So most people pay a lot of money and they show up and they wait for information to come to them, which is not the ideal mastermind. The ideal mastermind, or the ideal sharing concept, is that what we do is you want to add value. And so by not paying, you better bring value. And by the way, your entrance into the mastermind, your attendance in it, is what maintains your membership. You can't buy your way in, and you can't buy your way to stay in the mastermind. And so that change forces people who are worth a lot of money to call me the week before and go, hey man, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. What should I talk about this time? I don't know what because everybody has to present.
Yeah.
Everyone has to present either, a mindset or a tactical or a strategy. Sure. So everybody has to bring value every single time, every 4 months. And so people are like, because if you did pay for it, you just might show up and be like, I'm going to mail it in this time.
Well, that was what was interesting. I was thinking about if you pay for something, you're invested in it. So you're going to want to be into it more. But at the same time, what's great about yours is you kick people out. So they have to be invested.
Yeah.
So that was where I always got tripped up. Because I'm like, well, if you pay for it, you're invested. Now you have to be in it. And if it's free, it's like, oh, I'll show up if I want. But no, not with you.
No, not. It's definitely not free. And so when I say nobody makes any money off it, is what I should really say. We get nice houses.
Sure.
We've done them all over the world. We were in Hawaii in May. So went out to Hawaii in May with a friend, and he has got a great house out there. Nice. And took his plane out there, and we all got together and we masterminded for a few days, and then mastermind in the morning, and then we did awesome activities afterwards.
There you go.
In the evening. And
sounds
so
horrible.
It's terrible. It's a tough life, but somebody's got to live it. But
yeah, right.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And that's the part about, I think, like work-life balance. Too many people get this as like, they think of it like a seesaw. Like I've got to go more work.
Right.
less fun,
right?
Less life, less family. I think integration is the key. And so we have fun together. We talk about business. We care about each other. We try to bring each other along. And it's interesting as we've moved along from tactics over the years, tactics to strategies, to mindset, to hiring. And we've evolved as entrepreneurs to become more business owners as opposed to just a solopreneur doing everything and wearing every hat on your own, because that's how most of us start. It's like, I don't have the resources to hire everybody.
Right here. That's me. It is the biggest challenge for me. And I know it is. And it's been my entire life, as an entrepreneur, I struggle. I have 27 different things and I can only go down those roads a little bit. So I need to really hone into the 3 and be able to do that. But I need to be able to outsource to other people. And obviously, you got the 4-hour work week and you tapped into it right away. And that's still a challenge of mine that I'm trying to do right now, is to learn to delegate. Because again, like you said earlier, we hold on to it, letting some of the stuff go.
Yeah, I think that the delegate, it's almost it's 2 sides of the same coin. And what I mean by that is that somebody who's going to be a successful entrepreneur is persistent. They persevere.
Sure.
They have discipline. They don't give up. Those are great characteristics in an entrepreneur. The problem with that is people that have those characteristics struggle in delegating and outsourcing to other people because they're willing to run through the brick wall and make it happen.
Yeah.
And one little trick that I've used to make myself more comfortable with that when I was really struggling with this a few years ago is that if I hire someone to do something, whether it's a contractor or employee, my goal is to have them 70% as good as I am.
Okay.
Because if I expect 100%, it's very hard to get that sometimes, if I'm a domain expert, especially.
Yeah.
So, but if I can get somebody that does 70% as well as I do in that aspect or that role, to me, that's a win. And then, hopefully I get somebody that's 120% of what I am, right? That's a dream. I've lowered the bar of my expectations to meet that goal. And then it's a lot easier to delegate and outsource, and you get that flywheel going of building a team and getting the right people to do it.
So I got a question for you on that, because one of the things that I always struggle with, and I know it's my own thing, is I always think sometimes I have to do more work to train somebody to do something else than me do it. Just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I end up doing. So what's your tip for that?
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that. Again, I should have hired more people a lot faster than I did. It was a huge opportunity cost for me. I want to call it learning experience and opportunity cost for me. I think that you have to really think about it from the long run. And this is where people get it caught up, right? It's I'm going to go and do, let's say it's an hour. I'm going to go do something that takes me an hour to do it. If I hire someone to do it and it takes me 3 hours to train them, let's just use that as an example. The easy thing is to go, shoot, I'd rather spend an hour than 3 hours, right?
Right.
But the reality is I got to do it every month.
Right.
And so now I say, well, hold on. If I take the investment and spend the 3 hours, in 3 months, my payback time is my hours.
Yep.
And now every month beyond 3 months, I've bought myself an hour back.
So you're saying don't just look at today.
100%.
Okay.
And that's hard to do, right?
Yeah,
especially when you're wearing all the hats and you're swimming in it. And
I just resonated with that. That's why I said it. I was like, okay, that's totally every day. I'm like, okay, I do it. Next day I'm like, well, if I would have looked forward. Okay, all right.
And I think it's we get, as we get busier and as we have more success, we start getting more opportunities. It's funny is you start off with nothing and you have no opportunities. And then as you get more and more opportunities, it changes from saying yes to everything to saying no to most things. And that's an interesting switch that we have to make, because then it's like, I can't say yes to everything. I literally don't have enough time in the day.
Right.
And so what I find, and what I still struggle with this day, is how do I get the death by 1,000 paper cuts to stop? It's 5 minutes here. It's 8 minutes here. It's 3 minutes here. And now I'm 3 hours gone of my, let's call it 7-8 hour workday.
You just reminded me of yesterday and the day before and the week before. And
we've all lived this Groundhog Day and we live it over and over again. And then we realize, well, wait. And once you start doing it, you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, this is a lot better to have it this way.
I've had moments where I've done it. I'm like, this is me. How am I not doing? And then I fall right back into the default.
Yeah. It is difficult. And I think it's even more frustrating when you hire somebody, you invest in them time, money, energy, and they don't work out.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest frustration I have is, and we've tried every hiring process in the world. We interview every which way. We try it all. And at the end of the day, I don't know if we have anything better. We're better than we used to be, but it's still, we don't really know who you're getting for an employee or a contractor until they start working with you.
Right.
Right. And we've got our core values in
like
the team.
Dating someone, you think you know them, and then 3 months later, you're like, I never even knew that person.
Listen, you don't meet the real person for 6 months.
Yeah.
You're dating who they think they are.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like that is their physical representation.
I say 3 months and you're like 6 months. I like yours better.
That is, you're still meeting. That is their representative.
Yeah. So one thing I try and do with my clients is, my goal for them at the end of the day is to have them waking up each day excited about their life, about who they are, where they're headed.
Wait, don't most people wake up excited?
Yeah, no.
Really? Is that true?
I teach it, and every day I have to remind myself, like, put that smile on. Let's do it. Let's get
Is that
there.
right? I mean, honestly, I'm wired that way. I'm a happy guy when I wake up.
This is okay, really? This is amazing.
And
I want to know this then.
And I don't think about it. Like, I guess there are some days when I wake up and I'm not that excited, but I'm still happy and excited every day I wake up.
Yeah.
And I will say it's interesting because I have 2 daughters and they're a little different. One is always happy when she wakes up, and the other one is most days happy when she wakes up. And there's nothing wrong with being sad or a little down. Or we're all going to have ups and downs days, but there are almost every day I'm excited and ready to rock.
I'm with you. Again, that's what I'm doing with my clients, because most people in the world that I know of, that I've met, struggle with this. You know, they wake up and they're basically doing the same thing over and over. Yeah, and that's the problem.
I think I was in that when I was younger and I had all those jobs I hated. And I do have to kind of remember back to those days. Like I'm extremely grateful for a situation I'm in now.
How do you wake up every single day? What motivates you, Robb Green?
I'm in a program called Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan. My coach is Chad Johnson. I go to one of the groups in Santa Monica every quarter. I love the program. It's my 4th year in the program. And what Dan says a lot is you need a bigger, better future. He talks a lot about like retirement, and retirement is like the fastest way to die for an entrepreneur.
Oh my gosh.
When you stop,
don't ever do that.
You're going to die.
Yeah.
Like you have nothing to look forward to. Like you ever see people, they've worked their whole life, they bust their butt, and then they stop and they think, oh, I've earned it now. Now I can go sit on the beach or whatever. 1 month after being retired, they're losing their minds. They've got nothing motivating them. And I love this concept of a bigger, better future. And I've just adopted it. Like I've talked to my kids about this. How do you have something? What do you want to go towards? It doesn't have to be financial. It could be, and this goes really to a key cornerstone of what I believe. My friend Phil introduced this to me a few years ago. I think there's 3 important categories that I think about all the time. I think about wealth, health, and relationships. So when I think about wealth, I think, how do I have enough money to live the desired life that I want, to provide for my family, to give me the freedom? Because really money are bullets in the gun. They're resources, something that I can allocate. I can buy my time back, whether you hire someone to
freedom, right?
Freedom, landscape. You hire somebody to do things you don't want to do, right? You're buying your time back and you got freedom and options. Money gives you options. Health. Without your health, everybody thinks you have lots of problems. Without your health, you have one problem. That's it.
Yes.
You're in the ICU, you got one problem and you got to get healthy, right? So I find a lot of people that focus on the wealth, which I have at certain parts of my life more than others, they let their health go and they don't spend enough time on it. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you've got all this money in this case, but you can't walk up a flight of stairs? I mean, honestly, how great is that? I mean, I guess you could pay someone to carry you up the flight of stairs, but I mean, that doesn't seem like the kind of life I want to have, where I'm going to actually play with my kids and eventually play with my grandkids. And I think relationships, and for me, when I think about relationships, it goes back to that community and that tribe. I love hanging out with like-minded people. And I mean, not that we're not all robots. This isn't 1984 where we've got groupthink, but it's around the same characteristics of what's important to us, right? And so I think about my kids and my wife and my friends, and I think about that as those are the relationships that I want to foster, and those are the relationships I want to invest in. And when I think about those 3 categories, I think about, how can I be an A in every category? If we grade it from an A to an F, how can I be an A in every category? And I think it's really very, very difficult to do that, right? I don't think this is easy because you ebb and flow over time.
Sure.
Where currently I'm spending more time on health, right? I've been investing more time in my energy, my health.
Now, is that because you've seen it sort of go down a little bit and you know you need to work on that? So you're at an A and A, but you're at a B+, but you want to get that to the A?
Yeah, I've always been lean and exercise and played sports my whole life.
Good.
Thanks. I appreciate that. COVID wasn't like everybody else. I probably drank too many Kirkland margaritas from Costco during COVID. And so we drank at home a little more, had a few cocktails, and wasn't as active. And a lot of us were stuck at home more. And so I gained a few pounds and wasn't quite as in shape as I had always been. But I still had it in my head, like, this is the way I've always been. Right. And it's interesting to meet people now, or people who only know me for a couple of years, like, oh, you lost a lot of weight. You're back in shape. You're in shape. And I'm like, I'm just back to where I was.
Right.
I'm back to where I was always in my life.
You caught me at a point.
You caught me at a point, but that's okay. But now I've refocused and got back to where I want to be. So I want to be an A in every category. And I think that the time and energy you spend on each of them is going to ebb and flow over time. Sure. Certain things are going to happen in your life when relationships are even more important, or they're an urgent part of your life, right? Wealth is an important part of your life if you're starting a new venture or you're buying a business or something along those lines. So I think your share of your time changes and how you want to do it. But I don't want to ever fully neglect any one of those categories.
How do you balance that then?
So that's a good question. I like the word balance. I don't. I try to integrate. So I want to integrate all of those things into my life. And if I put them together, and I'll use my kids as an example.
Yeah, I was going to say, give me
my kids are a great example. So my 14-year-old daughter, Dylan, came to me in May and said, Dad, I'm ready to get strong. And I was like, great. This new. I love this.
Mentally,
music to my ears.
Everything
physically, let's go.
Okay,
let's go, Dad.
It.
So we were in Hawaii for the summer for 2 months. And so we went as a family every day to the gym and worked out. And she trained with me. So we trained together 3 days
she worked
on.
Out before, or is this something totally new?
Had not worked out before. She played some sports, but she's kind of done growing now. Okay. She's 14 and a half. So she's kind of, we didn't want to do anything. I didn't want her to lift weights when she's still growing.
Gotcha.
So and I didn't want to push her at all. So she came to me and said, I'm ready to go. And I said, great. So let's work out. So I started her off. I did some personal training when I was a much younger man. So I have a very solid understanding of training. And so I built a program for her. And so we were working out together. And it's that feedback loop, right? We work out together. She's willing to put the effort in. She starts getting stronger. Oh, I like this. I'm going to work out. Feedback, getting stronger. I can start to see my shoulders, my legs. I can see the muscles starting to develop quickly. Yeah. I want to keep going. This is fun. I want to stay on this. So I'm trying to teach her long-term habits, right? Lifestyle, forever.
Lifestyle. I love
so
it.
In this case, I'm integrating health with my relationships and my daughter.
Okay.
So those two, it's almost like a forcing function. Are you familiar with forcing functions? A forcing function makes you do something. So what I mean by that, I commit to doing something with my daughter. We go back to the hero conversation. I don't want to look like the guy.
Right.
I mean, if she's 14 and she's like, Dad, we go to the gym. What am I going to say? No, no, I'm too tired today. I can't make it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to the gym. Yeah. Right. I'm going to be forced. That guy. I'm forced to go in.
Yes.
So now that's a function of forcing me to go to the gym. So I'm going to get the health. We get to spend time together, one-on-one time, talking about life, talking about whatever she wants to talk about or I want to bring up. So I'm integrating those two pieces of life.
Yeah.
I'll use her as another example with wealth. Every time I'm hanging out with friends, we have friends come stay at the house, or we were in Hawaii. We were hanging out with some friends and talking business. Another friend of mine, Matt, and his family were there for the month of July. So we get together with them. Anytime I'm talking to Matt about business, she's right here. She's listening. She's absorbing. She's pulling it in. She's just soaking it out. She's
Love
just
it. What'd you say,
pulling
she's
it
14?
in. 14. Yeah, 14. So
dynamo.
I'm integrating that with that because I don't know if it's possible to really be an A in everything if you had to switch between every one of them all the time.
Context switching, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a cost to that. Yeah. There's a mental cost. There's a physical cost. You switching, but if you can fully integrate, and by no means am I saying this is easy.
No.
But if you can hang out with the right people.
You find the matrix is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
you live in the matrix.
Live in the matrix. Yeah. Once you see.
Robb Green lives in the matrix. That's the tip, folks.
Once you see the matrix, you can't unsee it. You can't do it. You gotta take the red pill. So I think that's the key is the integration part. And one last thing about this framework, we were in Hawaii in May, and I was on a hike with some of these friends from the Mastermind and two friends, Mike and Ty, and Allie, another friend from that I do some work with up in Seattle. And I said to Ty, posed that question to Ty, and I said, hey, Ty, listen, this is one of the framework I'm using, and how do you think about this? And he said, I think I'm a B across all three of them. I said, that's great. Honestly, he's probably an A in a couple of those categories, but he's being generous with himself. Or I was being a little critical of himself. He's a B across the three categories. I said, all right, I'm your genie. I snapped my fingers. Which one of those three do you want to be an A? His answer converted my answer. He said, wealth for sure. Now, prior to asking, and I've asked this question to maybe 10, 15 people.
Yeah.
Prior to asking him, I would have said health, because I do think if you don't have your health, you got one problem.
Sure.
But his logic and reasoning converted me to believe that. And he said, it's wealth, because if I solve wealth big enough, I can now have the resources and time and energy to focus on my health and focus on my relationships. And if I solve wealth big enough, I don't have to always solve wealth.
Right.
Whereas health is forever. You can't work out one day and then never work out again.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
As you said, it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. Same thing with relationships.
Yeah.
You can't put a lot of energy into one relationship and then go, oh, we're great.
Yeah.
We're going to be great for the rest of our lives.
And like you said, like wealth, money buys you freedom, and you have the freedom to now allocate more to the health, and makes sense.
It's resources, it's resource allocation, and having more resources gives you, I think wealth is like leverage. It just exaggerates the outcome. If you make a bad investment and you have leverage, you have a really bad investment.
Been there.
Yeah, everybody has. And if you make a good investment, you've got leverage, you've got a great investment, right? So all wealth does is exaggerate the outcome that you've got by giving you more resources to apply. If you're an asshole and you have a lot of money, you're probably still an asshole.
Sure.
It doesn't turn you into a nice guy. It might be a bigger one. And you might have a bigger megaphone to be an asshole with.
There you go.
That's really the core of what motivates me.
Okay.
And I love teaching. I love coaching, whether it's my kids, my team, my friends. I love sharing, and I love just helping people. So this platform gives me really an opportunity to do it one time. We record this. We have one conversation. I find myself having the same conversation 10 different times with 10 different people. And I'm like,
same way.
Did I already tell you this? Because I feel like I did. No, I didn't tell you. I told somebody else this. I learned this new thing and I want to share it. This is a way for me to one-time it and get it out there to people that want to listen to it.
Sure.
And again, if you don't want to, if it's not, doesn't resonate with you, that's okay.
So if somebody asks you a question, you're like, look at episode 57,
100%.
About 2 hours in.
Yes. I'm going to literally be like, hey, check show notes.
There you go.
I don't know. I already covered this, I think.
So I love it. I love that philosophy, but let me ask you this. You said earlier, you don't wake up ever not excited about your life. That cannot be 100% true. There's got to be obstacles. There's got to be difficulties.
Oh, yeah.
What has gotten in your way, or what gets in your way sometimes of your motivation, of your, passion for life? And what do you do about it?
That's great. I think a lot of people, including myself, listen, we all have ups and downs. We all have fear. We all have indecision. We all have doubts, right? This podcast is a great example. Are people going to like me? I don't know. And you know what? To be honest with you, I'm okay with it.
F them, dude.
Right? It might be 8 people.
Yeah.
We got 8 people. We got 1 year in. We got 8 subscribers. We're going for 9 next week, right? I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm okay with that because, listen, I know what motivates me, and this is going to allow me to do what I want to do and have fun with it. This is fun. I enjoy this. I get energy from it. I think when people have challenges, we all have challenges. Personal, professional, all the time, monetary. We all have these challenges. It's not about the challenge. It's about how you perceive the challenge. If I give you a piece of information, it's not necessarily good or bad. It could be good or it could be bad.
Right.
Is this a learning opportunity or did I make a mistake? It's just 2 sides of the same coin all the time.
Reality.
Perception is reality.
Yeah,
so
100%.
I think, and my wife is one of the best people I've ever seen at this. She'll get upset about something, and 15 minutes later, she's like, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about that. I'm totally fine. I'm over it. And she gets over it like that.
Yeah.
And I'm similar in that way that I don't hold grudges. Typically, I try not to, at least. I try not to really, really think about it over and over and over again. I try to take the information in. How I use that framework of these obstacles is I try to take it from a factual. I tend to be a more rational, logical person. I look at it and say, all right, what is the fact? So that's, what do you know, right? It's typically fact-based. Then what does it mean? You add a perception to that. I try to put a positive spin on as many things as I can. Mm-hmm. That's, what does it mean?
Sure.
And then what do I think I should do about it? Is this something that I should solve? Is it a professional problem? Is it a personal issue? Do I have a resource that can help me with it? And then this is where I've gotten really good at delegating and resourcing. Right. So I've got a shoulder issue right now I've been working on. I've been dialing it in, focused on. I was like, wait, what am I doing by myself? I know a couple of guys that are PTs. One of the guys is a PT to professional athletes here in town. I'm like, hey, when can I come see you? I need you to help build a protocol for me, assess it, identify the issue, and build a protocol. I can do all that on my own. It might take me 10 hours.
Yeah.
He can do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So why not find the expert to help me do that instead of going and solving the problem on my own? So when I see obstacles, I just try to figure out, am I the best person to solve that problem? Or is there somebody else that I know that can solve that problem? Or, go back to the world is flat, do I hire somebody on Upwork or Fiverr or wherever that is that expertise, and I hire them to solve the problem? That's how I handle the obstacles. So you make up in my life.
You do what I don't. You do. I don't do it.
Tell me what you don't. Okay, right? What do you do?
No, that's what I'm saying. We talked about this earlier. It's like, that's my problem, is the delegation and getting somebody to do that for you. But what you're
how do you handle the obstacle then?
So when it comes to mindset, and you said perception's reality, I'm one of those people that when obstacles come, I have a philosophy and a mindset that I live by, and I try and teach to people, which is really tough to grasp. But there are no problems. There are only solutions. So anytime there's an obstacle that comes my way, whether I have to go through it, over it, or around it, I'm a creative by nature too. So it becomes fun. People ask me all the time, they're like, why don't you ever get like rattled? And I'm like, because why? If you get, the world sort of in society focusing on the problem, what's that going to do? Nothing, right? You're not going to go anywhere. So as soon as something comes up, I'm like, okay, cool. How do we get around it? How do we solve this? And then you get to go into the whole creative process of problem solving, which to me is super fun. So, yeah. And sure, the initial emotion's going to hit me right
of course.
away. That's just
everybody. No one's immune to that.
Right. So that's how my problem. I have a ton of them every day. You wake up, there's always going to be the things, but it's the mindset. I just have that mindset. And again, it's repetition, and I built it, and it's a part of who I am now, not just something I try and do. So it's natural for me. And that's what people, you start with it. You have to remind yourself, okay, don't dwell on the problem.
Right.
What's the solution? Because there's a solution to everything.
Well, and I think you touched on something really important there about the perception, right? Most people don't recognize and have an awareness around that they're feeling a certain way because of something else, right? They don't even have the awareness yet.
Right.
They're just reacting.
Right.
100%. Just take in what happens to you. Take them, let the feelings or the emotions wash over you for a minute, right? Get angry, be angry for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And now go, okay, what really happened? All right, this happened. Okay. What's an appropriate reaction for that? How should I react to that? How should I think about that? And that might take 5 minutes, might take 5 hours or 5 days. Everybody's in a different spot on how aware and how they're able to switch that back. But I think about, that's a way I use it. And then waking up excited is back to that bigger, better future. I've got so many things that I'm working on that I'm having fun with, that it allows me to wake up going, man, I'm going to get rolling on this thing. I can't wait. Let's go.
Okay.
Like today I woke up this morning. I just got a cold plunge. I was excited. I got a cold plunge at the house. Super excited. A cold plunge.
Of course you do.
Yeah. I just got, I'm on the, I got to do the Instagram picture pretty soon, like everybody else. It's a requirement that once you buy a cold plunge, you have to take a picture of yourself with the cold plunge and post it on Instagram. I think it's actually in the manual. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to do that this week, I think. But the cold plunge, I did the coldest I've ever done at 42 degrees this morning.
What's
they say that, well, they being the experts, I'm not a medical professional or anything like that, but I'm a big Huberman fan. And I've read a few different papers on this and looked at some things. And Peter Attia has talked about this. My understanding of it is that you need to be under 55 degrees. The research I've listened to Huberman talk about was like 11 minutes per week. So you need to be under 55 degrees to really start getting some benefits. And a aggregate of 11 minutes is kind of the sweet spot per week is what I've read. Now,
how do you break that up? 11 minutes into how many sessions?
Most people do like a 2 minute and then a 1 minute.
Okay.
Sometimes people will go, I've done a contrast therapy where I'll jump in the sauna, then a cold plunge, sauna, cold plunge. I like that a lot. It's a little bit more of a time commitment. This morning I was up and I had things to do. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go 42 degrees, 2 minutes. So I jumped in the shower, rinsed off. The coldest it gets in Arizona is probably, 80 degree water in the shower. It's not very cold, especially in the summer here. Yeah. Jumped in, washed off, and I jumped in for 42 degrees for 2 minutes and then went back in the shower. That same cold water felt like it was hot.
Yeah.
Because I just got out of the water. And, there's a whole lot of science behind it in terms of the cold shock proteins and things like that, that I feel amazing afterwards. Yeah. So it's really about not just the biology, but it's the mindset. Once you've tackled, I got to credit to another friend of mine, Nate. third subscriber now. Nate Cox in California. He's going to subscribe now. We were at dinner earlier this year, and he's like, "Oh man, are you cold plunging?" And I feel like I hear this now from all my friends. I said, "No, dude, I don't."
It's the thing to do, like doing a podcast.
I grew up in Minnesota, buddy. I don't like cold water. And he's like, "You got to do it. I'm telling you, it's awesome." He had gone to the Wim Hof's retreat in Poland. I mean, he's all in. Like,
went deep.
He's in the actual ice water in the lake, and he's in it. And I'm like, all right, I'll try it. So I tried it a few times. I was hooked right away. I bought the cold plunge. We got it delivered while we were out of town this summer, and just got it set up this weekend. I'm like, this is great. So I sent him a message, and I was like, hey, dude, I'm hooked. I'm in. I'm doing the cold plunge. I feel great. And what he said to me when we went to dinner earlier this year, he said, you know what? Once I've sat in 40-degree water for a few minutes, the rest of the day seems pretty darn easy. So I go all the way down to past the where the cervical spine starts, all the way up to basically my hairline. And I notice a big difference when I go that deep.
Really?
Huge difference, yeah. Versus just coming down to like, first time I ever did it, I barely got like just up to my chest. Oh, toes are out, man. Toes are out for sure. Hands are out in the beginning. Because for me, the part that hurts the most for sure is my fingers and my toes. That is the part. You've done it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How cold have you gone?
I haven't gone that cold.
That was the first time I went that cold, and man,
like
that
80
is
degrees in Costa Rica. That was my cold plunge.
Yeah. That's what a lot of people do. They're like, I got my cold plunge at 60, and they're like, that's a bath. Right. That's not a cold plunge. That's not going to get you the results you want. So, but that this morning, that was something I was looking forward to. It's like, hey, I'm going to cold plunge this morning. I'm going to try a lower temperature. I'm going to see how I feel. But it gives me that clarity to tackle the obstacles of the day, because like, you got to kind of psych yourself. At least I do. I have to kind of psych myself up. Like, it's a lot easier to go, yeah, we'll skip it today.
Oh,
I don't want to do it. But you've already tackled that, and you've made a decision in your mind to do that. And I think Tony Robbins says that a lot. He's like, I don't negotiate with my mind. I just tell my mind what we're going to do. And so I made the decision. I'm going to jump in there, and I'm going to get into the water, and I'm going to go from there. And now it's like, man, that was great. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. Visit I'mTheOne.com and ask me anything. And as always, stay curious and never stop becoming the one.